everyone, welcome back. My name is Richmond Reader, but I also respond to Emily. Today I have a lot to talk about. I have my October wrap-up, my November TBR, my sort-of-ish Lalathon TBR, and a slight unboxing. Slight because there's only 2 books in it. Ha, just kidding. Okay, this is Emily from editing. Well, everything that I wanted to jam-pack into one video was gonna make the video really, really long, so we're not gonna do that. This video is gonna be part 1, just including my October TBR and my Lalathon books. Well, potential Lalathon books because there's a hugimous list. And then stay tuned for part 2, my November TBR. Okay, keep watching, bye! Since filming my last video, Reading Broken Things by Lauren Oliver with my kitten, I lost this book. It disappeared. I checked every room in the house, including the refrigerator. Is the refrigerator really a whole room though? Yeah. It was in the ottoman, our ottoman in the living room. It was inside of it. I have no recollection of putting this book in there. None. Doug said he didn't put it in there. I have no recollection of putting it in there. I swear this place is haunted. I joke about it. I don't actually believe in ghosts though. So for being completely discouraged that I didn't have the book that I was currently reading, I didn't read anything for like 5 days until yesterday when we found it. It was pissing me off. So I'm gonna finish this one first in November and then I'm gonna move on to my TBR. But first, the books I read in October. I had this fear that I did really, really badly for my October reading. I had this goal to read 8 books a month. I know 8 books doesn't sound like a lot, but for me, that's basically what I feel capable of per month. And when I say read books, the majority of my books are actual physical books that I read with my eyes instead of audiobooks or graphic novels. And one of these suckers was pretty big. So these are the 5 books that I read in October. It wasn't the 8 that I had originally planned for, but I'm still kind of okay with my reading for the month. Here are the books that I read in October. Book numero uno, I read Vicious again by V.E. Schwab in preparation for the sequel. No, I did not read the sequel in October. I had planned to read that in November. Yes, this is an extremely hyped up book. So if you came across my channel and are seeing now that I am talking about another book that everyone is literally talking about, like you want some new material, I will give you new material. But this book is actually really good and it's worth the hype, so I know, it's one of those where it's like so hyped up that you're afraid to read it because you know like the hype made it up here and if you read it and it's just like mediocre then you're like disappointed. I loved it so much I went to Barnes & Noble's and did something I never do, was buy a brand new first edition hardcover signed copy. My wallet was not happy. Basic rundown of this book, if you have no idea what it's about, which is highly unlikely because it's like super popular, but alright, let me tell you. A very unique aspect of this book is its setup. It's one of those books that constantly is flashing back to the past, which might be annoying to some readers, but I absolutely love it. Present day, the book starts out with Victor and Sydney digging up a grave. If that's not a hook, I don't know what is. So present day, it is 10 years later, and then they flash back 10 years before when Victor and Eli were in medical school together. They have this big project to come up with a thesis, and Eli's thesis is, let's figure out how to develop superpowers. And after lots of research, Eli, pursuing his thesis, finds out that near-death experiences are key in developing superpowers. Victor is his best friend and roommate and is like, dude, are you serious? Eli's persistent, and they end up, you know, getting deep down in that near-death experience territory. There's little Sydney and her older sister Serena and Serena's boyfriend and a dog. It's just really cool, and if you haven't picked it up, you probably have. I don't know why I'm still talking about it. Book number 2 that I read in October was Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I actually have a full video about me reading this in one day. Link below if you're interested. TBH, I thought this book was about robots because I went into it with the Lunar Chronicles in my heart, and I'm like, yeah, more robots, because that looks like a robot. No, that's just his, like, uniform. That's Nova, that's Adrian, oh my gosh, this was a superhero book. I recently went to a NaNoWriMo event at a local bookstore. I will talk about that in a second. Part of the NaNoWriMo event was the bookstore having this beautiful sale of all books 20% off. So of course, when we were taking little breaks between vigorous writing sprints, we would look around at the books and pick out books and buy books because support local bookstores. This is in paperback now, and I recommended this to a girl that was there, complete stranger, had no idea who she was, and she ended up buying this book. I was so shocked that just me expressing how I felt about a book was enough to persuade someone to buy it themselves. I'm like flattered. Okay, this is another book that a lot of people have talked about, and I'm not trying to talk about all of the popular hyped up books, but this one again is worth the hype. Ooh, oh! Okay, I'm filming this on the 5th, which I'm probably gonna try to post it on the 5th. Arch Enemies comes out tomorrow. Arch Enemies comes out tomorrow. So this book is about, again, people with powers. I didn't actually make that connection. People with powers are the Renegades. They're human, they just have powers, it's okay. And then there's the Anarchists, where we follow Nova's perspective. She's an anarchist. The book starts out with this horrible thing happening to her. I went into this book after I got over my whole expecting robots thing. I assumed there was gonna be superheroes and super villains, but they are all pretty much like have their faults. You know, Adrian is the son of two dads, and these dads are the renegades who are the politics, the high people in the thing. And Adrian sees the flaws in their ways of doing things. Like, they make it this big show of like people having powers and let's put them on teams. That's so big, I don't know how to sum it up. Can I just say it's really good? No. Okay, more detail. Our main character Nova, or Nightmare as she goes by, and then Insomnia, which she also goes by, her power is kind of two different things. One, she can go all night without sleeping. She does not need sleep to survive. Two, she touches you and you fall asleep. When she goes to infiltrate the Renegades, she keeps that a secret. She goes up on stage and she's like, yeah, I don't sleep at all. I don't need sleep. And they're like, wow, boring. Next. I'm having a hard time summing up this book because it's large and because it's just really good and there's so many different aspects that deserve attention. So I'm gonna put it down now hoping that I did it justice, which I did not. Some booktubers will include like how many stars they gave this book on Goodreads, but like if you already know how I felt about the book, given that you know how many stars I gave it, what if you don't actually listen to what I have to say? So if I'm talking about books in a wrap-up and expressing how much I loved them, there's a good chance I gave them like a 4 or 5 star on Goodreads. Out of 5. The next book I read in October is probably my favorite of all 5 that I read in the month, and that is The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kiersten White. I have a full non-spoiler review of this. I'll leave the link in the description below if you're interested. My camera just cut out on me. I'm back. I have a lot of books to talk about in this video, so watch my review on this book and see if you want to read it for yourself. I just love this book. Oh, wait. Listen to me right now. Slayer. I mentioned Slayer briefly in a past video. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a show that my older brother Beau loved, and I was kind of scared to watch it until I got a little bit older and became obsessed with it. And I love it, and I've seen every episode at least 8 times. Kiersten White is writing a book called Slayer that is revisiting the Buffy world. What I'm really pissed off about is that booktubers are getting arcs of Slayer. I am a new booktuber. Amateur here. I haven't posted a video in like 5 days because I was going on a book strike because I had lost the book I was reading. I just want to be that booktuber who is that well known that they get an arc of Slayer. Moving back into my October reading, I read 172 Hours on the Moon by Johan Harstad. I'm trying to say it with a Norwegian accent. I don't know if I did it. This was the one book I read this month that I was really disappointed in. I am not going to rant about how much I didn't like this book. I'm going to give you reasons why I didn't like it. On the back of the book, we have 3 names. These are the 3 teenagers who were chosen to go to the moon. We know that they were chosen to go to the moon. Do you know how many pages you have to read until they actually go to the moon? About 150 pages! Also, we already know their names, so the first about 75 pages starts introducing the characters and talking about the characters, and one of them is quirky and in a band, and one of them is like annoyed at her parents for entering her in the contest. Anyway, like what am I gonna do on the moon? This is the summary of the book right here, okay? If 150 pages can be summed up right here, you're doing something wrong. If you've heard about this book, you know that it's about monsters on the moon. Do you know how many pages you have to read before anything exciting happens? 244. This book would have been so much more enjoyable if I was 14 or 15 years old. I looked over because I thought it was gonna land in the cat water fountain. It didn't. Okay. I wouldn't have cared. The only downside of that would be I was contaminating my cat's water with dirt. Sorry, that was rude. Okay, moving on. Moving on to the last and final book that I completed in the month of October, one that I loved. Okay, chill. That was weird, okay? Don't geek out so much on camera. They're gonna think you're weird. Give the Dark My Love by Beth Revis. I talked about this book in a couple different videos. If I think that any of those were exciting or relevant to what I'm talking about now, I'll leave the links in the description below if you're interested. Also, the Synonym challenge, you should totally check that out. That was hilarious. Part 2 coming soon, I swear. I said in a previous video that this book felt real. Disclaimer, I don't read fantasy. Ever. I don't know why. I read a lot of contemporary books, so it would make sense that I'm not actually accustomed to wrapping my mind around so many different fantastical worlds. Everything has a different world and different set of politics and principles and powers, but maybe I should try harder because this book was fantastic. I actually met Beth Revis very briefly, and she signed it for me. Emily, yay! Let me tell you what this book is about. Our main character, Nedra, is from a poor town, village area from the north, and then she goes south to go to this academy where she's gonna study medicinal alchemy, not necromancy. Necromancy is actually, frowned upon. Nedra is basically a medical student. She goes to this academy, but she has read books her whole life, her dad being a bookseller, which is funny because this academy is full of, entitled rich kids, and she's from the north where most people are poor. She studies under Master Ostrom alongside Gregory. Now Gregory, his perspective, it's actually in dual perspective. His perspective, it says gray at the top, and this is the cutest thing ever about this book. He goes by Gregory up until he meets Nedra early on in the book, and she calls him Gray, just shortening his name, and then that is his nickname. She gave him his nickname. I want to say that this book is about raising the dead, but it's not. The majority of the book, she is volunteering to go to this hospital that is on this little island. Actually, I can show you the map right now. Hey. She's from up here where people are poor, and she goes to this academy down here where people are rich. And so then there's this little island right here where the quarantine hospital is. The sick are basically taken on a ferry there to quarantine them. So the majority of the book is about Nedra practicing her medicinal alchemy, using a crucible to take away the pain from people suffering from the plague. Necromancy is a thing that does happen just a little later. There's a point where the plague is so strong that the students are evacuated out of the academy and they have to go home. She goes home to her poor village where it is a stereotype that it's the poor and dirty who get the plague, not the rich and clean. She goes home, everyone is in hysterics, and it gets really, really tragic and emotional. Slight side note, I did have a couple minutes to ask Beth if this is going to be a trilogy. She said it's going to be a duology. I don't know what the second book is going to be titled, but I hope it's something elegant and long like this one because I love long titles. And of course, Broken Things. I am this far. I'm actually really enjoying this book. I just came across a video that BooksandLala posted where she talked about reading the Ark and not liking it. But I think she disliked it for reasons that I wouldn't really mind as much as she did. Speaking of BooksandLala, she announced that from November 1st to November 9th, she is going to be doing her Lalathon, which is a read-a-thon that we can participate in too. She posted 2 videos, her favorite thrillers and her favorite books of all time, and these are the videos that she's going off of to do her read-a-thon. She's basically rereading all of her favorite books. I don't think she was being selfish or conceited at all. She was being very humble about it. She was like, am I really doing this? Am I gonna post a Lalathon? People are gonna read my favorite books? What? I think it's a great idea because if they're her favorite books, chances are they're gonna be other people's favorite books too. So I'll leave her favorite books link in the description below. I just wrote down all the books from her list that I owned that I haven't read yet. Wow, that's a lot. Okay guys, that has been my October wrap-up and some of the BooksandLala books that I might read for her read-a-thon, that I own, that I have the potential to read, but you will find out in further videos to come what I actually end up reading this month. I mean, out of all the books I have picked out for November so far, I have a pretty good mix of different things, so I don't think I'll be bored. I'm gonna have reviews up for those new releases at the end of the month, or, maybe after I finish them. And stay tuned for all the video ideas that I have in my head that I need to work on. Happy readings, and I will try not to lose this book again before I finish it. For my outro, I'm gonna feature Aurora. She's my new kitten, and isn't she adorable?
The baby's meowing, we gotta go feed her.
Oh my gosh. Good morning, baby. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come back in. Come on, I'm gonna feed ya. close the door. I gotta close it so you don't get eaten by the big one.